All right, George Kriza once again with Pat Ritchie of the Table Group. And what we'd like to do here in our last discussion is talk about summarizing the impact of the five temptations on an organization and also the challenges of implementing the best possible behaviors. So maybe you could start us off with a summary of the five temptations.
Yeah, so when we go back and we take a look at these temptations, it was, and this is a little inside baseball. Lencioni wrote this book first before he wrote his, incredibly popular Five Dysfunctions of the Team. At first, he said, "Look, I've been working with many executives, and I can see where they, what they do impacts the entire organization. So everywhere from invulnerability of a leader, where they can't admit their mistakes and weaknesses, it turns out leading to the absence of trust inside the team. Where a leader gives into the temptation of wanting harmony among the executive team and people on the team, they often quash the healthy conflict that's needed to make a functional team. When a leader gives in to the temptation of certainty, so often they delay decisions and they create a place where an organization cannot be committed to a course of action because the leader is still looking for certainty. In the fourth temptation of popularity, where we want to be liked and people like to be liked, is that we often then we start to avoid accountability in the organization. So we start to become more mediocre. And finally, we're looking at kind of for ourselves more than the organization. Now we lose an attention on results, including our own results. So I think in these very unique ways that Lencioni talks about it here. One, the temptation of a leader. Remember, a temptation does not mean we're all tempted to do these things. It doesn't mean that we have to give into it. I think it was St. Ignatius said, we can't keep the birds from flying over our heads, but we can keep them from making a nest in our hair. So what you can do is realize that we're all going to be tempted in these ways, but you don't have to give into it. If you do, it won't be just limited the impact to just you, but to your entire team.
And so would it be fair to say that the CEO owns the culture of the company and the management team?
Yeah, we often say they're the chief cultural officer, absolutely, of the organization.
And would we then therefore be able to say that having this kind of culture, not the dysfunctional kind, but the right behaviors being modeled, is completely transformative to an organization?
It's completely transformative because remember, there's two requirements for success. One, that you're smart. In other words, that's all the things that you learned in business school. Your sales, your marketing, your partnerships, your financials. But beyond that, you also have to be healthy. There's these two big requirements. And we're talking about minimal confusion and minimal confusion and minimal politics inside the organization. So we talk about four disciplines, like you did earlier, about the four obsessions of an executive. And those are disciplines that an executive needs to have. Those disciplines of building cohesion on their team, creating clarity for the organization, over communicating the clarity, and then finally the discipline that they also have to learn how to master is reinforcing those disciplines through human systems. Who you hire, who you fire, how you promote, how you reward. George, the things that you talked about, you did at your company, where you really reinforced your operating principles through peer-to-peer recognition. All those things are reinforcing the clarity through your human systems. So it's in those four disciplines that you build a healthy organization and give you a competitive advantage that's very, very difficult to beat.
So if an organization, I would say this, probably numerous organizations need help to really get there. And even really successful organizations may still be successful, you almost might say, in spite of breaking all of these rules. So how can an organization get help to become more effective?
Well, I think when you look at, leaders are readers. And so I encourage you to read good books, CEO, read good books. These are all excellent helps. But I also say that there's a time, I'm a golfer, and I read books on the golf swing. And so I could read a Tiger Woods book, but I have a hard time going out and actually doing that on the driving range or the golf course all the time. If Tiger would come over and go with me to the driving range, it would help me out a little bit to help. He wouldn't hit my shot. I have to hit my own shot.
I don't
And
know. I think it'd be nice if you swung the club for me.
yeah, that would be really good. If he could, or any of these young guys that are out there on tour now.
You could be my avatar, but go.
Yeah, that's right. I could use that. And I think that's what consultants, a good consultant does, is they don't come in and do the job for you, but they're a little bit like that coach on the driving range or on the golf course that helps you master those disciplines. And from time to time, all of us can use that. Sometimes people want a long-term relationship with somebody like that. But again, look, I've told many clients before, when they're worried about the investment in that, I'm like, well, look, these books are usually like $23. I mean, just do that. But the key is actually, you've got to ask yourself, what's the cost? I said this to the CFO of a Major League Baseball team. I go, what's the cost of not having trust in your organization? And he leaned back in his chair and he put his hands over his face and he goes, a lot. And so if you're struggling with that, get help. Get help to build a company and leadership that builds trust, has great conversations, make decisions in a timely manner, hold each other accountable, and then finally look out for team results above all.
And I'd like to mention this as well, Pat. And I actually listened to a podcast where they were making fun of the Lencioni books, and I wrote them a tasteful email with my contra view. And I actually had an interesting and engaging discussion. But I think sometimes people say, well, what's in these books? It's a fable. It's almost like a fairy tale. It's so simple. Doesn't everybody know this? Are you kidding me? The fact is, this is about the hardest thing in the world to actually accomplish and achieve. To have the presence of mind and the inner clarity to be able to implement all of these things is extraordinarily difficult. And it requires diligent effort. It requires tremendous courage. And, you're breaking through all sorts of psychological barriers and emotional barriers in order to implement these disciplines.
Yeah.
So, to my way of thinking, it's not easy at all. And help is definitely called for in many cases to get on the right track.
Yeah, and listen, I would say these things are easy to understand. I think they're much harder to do. George, for me, it's a little bit like a diet. It's easy to understand a diet. It's really a lot harder for me to do.
And I'm so glad I just lost 25 pounds.
Well, you look good.
Thank you. Thank you. But I have a long way to go. But I am going to get there. Anyway, it was really great reviewing all this with you, Pat. Thank you for joining me. And love to work on some projects with you and help some clients. So if anyone wants to reach out to us, Pat, would you like to share how to get in touch with yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is my email. Now, it's a little bit long, but it's not that hard once you just write it all out. So it's pat.richie, which is spelled RICHIE, at tablegroupconsulting.com. Pat.richie at tablegroupconsulting.com. And I encourage you to go to the Table Group website. That's just tablegroup.com. In there, you'll find a page for consultants. You'll see ours. We have them all over the country, of several in Europe and in Australia. So you can see this tremendous group of people that are out there willing and ready to help anybody that wants to learn how to really master these 4 disciplines of organizational health.
And once again, I'm George Kriza, Kriza. You can reach me at the email of the word diamond, DIAMOND, the number 1, at challengingdecisions.com. My phone number is 312-320-7760. And both of us are, again, very delighted to help and have a discussion about how culture can be really transformative. We hope you enjoyed our conversations this afternoon and hope we get a chance to talk with you about it. Thank you.